right, good afternoon. My name is Dana Hogan, and I worked on the Beneficial Electrification for Everyone initiative this summer. I did have two projects. I worked on the Earnest project and the ARID project, so hopefully I will get through them and not go too much over time. So a quick overview, I'll just introduce what Beneficial Electrification for Everyone is. And then for each project, I am going to go over the internship goals that I had, bigger picture, my survey methods, and current results if we have any. And then I'll just kind of do a conclusion on both of them at the end. So to start, what is Beneficial Electrification for Everyone? If you go to the ACEP website, you see that the B initiative seeks to understand the electrification of non-electrified energy loads, such as transportation and heating, in order to harness local, sustainable, and cost-effective energy resources for all. So in pretty basic terms, this just means it's a fancy way of saying replacing fossil fuel use with electricity in the hopes of lowering emissions and cost for everyone. So I'm going to start with the Earnest project. And Earnest is an acronym for Equitable, Affordable, and Resilient Nationwide Energy System Transition. So that's quite a mouthful. Earnest is a lot easier to say. But my personal internship goal this summer was to complete an intercept survey in Kotzebue. And that survey was hopefully exploring the household value placed on reliable electricity for residents. The bigger picture is there is a grad student here working on this particular home choice system. So my results will be available for use in a larger study that's developing an economic optimization algorithm for this theoretical home choice system that's supposed to be aligning value of load and energy load with the supply of renewable energy. So the survey methods, I like to thank the intern that was working on this last summer. Her name was Greta Leish, and she did a lot of research, and she came up with both the surveys that I implemented this summer. And the first one for the Earnest survey is a willingness to pay method, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And where I kind of came in was the IRB approval process. So that is a lengthy process if you haven't done it before. I would say that's probably where about half of my summer internship went. And I had to become, because it is research on humans, so I had to become certified, and then we had to pretty much apply for exemption for both of the programs. Following the approval, I did need to coordinate with Kotzebue businesses, mainly KOTZ Radio. They were kind enough to put out a public service announcement that I was going to be coming to conduct this survey. And then also Alaska Commercial Company, which is like the general grocery store in Kotzebue. It's called the AC store. And that's where I was going to be doing my survey. And finally, travel and survey in Kotzebue. This is a picture I took. It was a beautiful day. This is Alaska Commercial Company in Kotzebue. If you've ever been to Kotzebue, maybe in the last 15 years, the AC store looked a little bit different. They just got a new store this last year, and it's incredible. Same thing on the left-hand side, Alaska Commercial, just a close-up picture. And then on the right, that is KOTZ Radio. And I was supposed to do an on-air interview when I landed in Kotzebue. However, due to flight complications, I ended up getting delayed about an hour and a half. So I was not able to do the interview, but I did want to stop by and thank them because they were great in helping just announce that I was coming to the public. So our current results, they're pretty preliminary, very basic, but right now we have average age is about 47.5 years old of those that were surveyed. We have gender, pretty 50-50. We only had about 12 people that completed the survey. And then approximate annual income, looks like we've got pretty good spread, more people towards the lower end, less than 20,000. Average winter monthly bill. That one's also kind of on the lower end. Looks like most people are falling underneath $125 a month. Okay, and this is kind of the meat of this survey. We have 4 different categories that we were asking these types of questions. The first one is what you see here, it's hot water reliability. The second is domestic heat reliability. The third we asked about was food storage, so think your fridge or freezer reliability. And the last question we asked about was vehicle reliability. And for the sake of time management, I'm only going to go over the first question, that's the hot water. And in the survey, we posed this scenario. You wake up and it's going to take 30 minutes for the hot water to heat up for you to take your shower. How much are you willing to pay to avoid that situation and have hot water right when you need it? Just kind of intuitively, more people are willing to pay. You could see in the green, more people are willing to pay when the cost is a lot lower. So we had the most number of yes responses when the potential cost was less than 50 cents. And then as you would expect, as the cost increases, we're having more people say, no, I would not pay that. This next slide is the same data set. It's just visually a little bit different. You can see the red trend line is our answers for no, I would not pay that amount for a hot shower. It starts pretty low, and then as we get a little higher, people are kind of opting out. They're falling off saying, I would not pay more than $5 for a hot shower in the morning. Similarly, the green trend line, you see it start high and then kind of peter off as the price increases. All right, now I'm going to talk about the ARID project, and ARID is yet another acronym. It is for Alaska Rural Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment Deployment. And my internship goal was to complete another intercept survey that is in and around Anchorage, Alaska, exploring EV charger, so electric vehicle charger use and experience, and just address any needs that may not be met. So the bigger picture is the results will be available to determine impacts of charging station deployment on communities in Alaska. And then AEA, which is the Alaska Energy Authority, they have grant funding for 9 rural communities to receive EV supply equipment. And that's pretty much what the survey is for, is to just figure out what needs to be updated or made better before we make those 9 communities available for EV charging. Very similar to the earnest survey methods. Greta Leish from last summer, she worked on the same project and she did a great job at asking some questions and posing really detailed information for the survey. And I had to go through the same type of process for IRB to get this survey approved because it's research on humans. And my local outreach here in Anchorage includes Recharge Alaska, which is the local company that has a few charging stations around town. Chugach Electric Association, they have one of these charging stations, and so does Alaska Rock Gym. Three Bears Chugach, they mainly have a lot of Tesla charging stations, but they are right on the highway, so we wanted to also be able to survey there and see what their demographic was. Unfortunately, I did not hear back from Three Bears in time, so I do not have results for them. But we did get approval from Recharge Alaska to post QR codes at the charging stations. We received approval from Chugach Electric Association, and I did not hear back from Alaska Rock Gym. And then my final step was to actually go to these places, post the QR codes, and intercept anybody that stopped and see if they would be willing to complete a survey. This is a quick photo. This is the first spot I was able to post QR codes at Chugach Electric. You can see on the right-hand side, that's the actual charger. Left-hand side is the information board, and there's a huge blow up of the QR code, so it's hard to miss. These are the chargers at Alaska Rock Gym. And like I said, I did not get approval to actually approach people at these chargers and use the parking lot. However, I did get approval from the charger owner company, that's Recharge Alaska. So here I only posted the QR codes. I did not stay and actually address people that were stopping. And current results, these are mainly from the Chugach Electric station. So just average age, it looks pretty distributed. I believe there are 7 responses from Chugach so far. Approximate income, race and ethnicity of the participants, vehicle registration, no surprise, I'm assuming majority will be in Alaska. The results kind of get skewed because there are only 7 participants so far, so it looks like a lot more people are from Texas and Minnesota, but realistically it was just 1 person. So, and then we asked this question, what's your motivation for owning an EV or using it if you're just renting? On the y-axis, you see concern for environment, performance, fuel cost, technology, and style. Looks like the most important one to everyone was performance, followed by cutting edge technology and style. And then just two more quick plots here. This is travel status. The blue is anyone that uses this charger weekly. So it looks like majority of people stopping here are using it weekly. And I know I said 2, but this isn't really a figure. This is just the average rating. We got a 2.67 out of 5. So there's definitely room for improvement. And this is not about any specific charger. This is not Chugach Electric charger or Alaska Rock Gym charger. This is just charger availability in Anchorage as a whole. So we definitely have some room for improvement here. And I'd say my lessons learned, my challenges were definitely IRB approval. It kind of feels like a hurry up and wait situation, but I'd never done it before, so it was really good experience. And then coordinating with local businesses, no one in particular was difficult to coordinate with. It was just the fact that there's a lot of back and forth when you're doing things like that, and things are not necessarily done in the most timely fashion. Advice I would give to a future intern, I would say ask as many questions as you have in your head. I mean, I know that there were some I didn't ask that I probably should have, but honestly, I felt like I got plenty of answers and everyone was really helpful anytime you ask questions. And then the other thing is just document everything. I forgot what I did a couple times, you know, oh, when did I do that? It's just really helpful to kind of see your own timeline of when things were done. Conclusion, my successes, I would say I actually got to go to Kotzebue, and that was kind of up in the air if I was gonna go. My flights got rescheduled. I didn't really get approval until a week and a half ago. So it was kind of just really quick, go, go, go. Really happy I got to go out there and get some responses from the public. And highs and lows research, lows, just kind of the hurry up and wait game, you know. IRB approval takes a little bit. Talking to other people, reaching out, takes some time. But if you're patient, you get to experience the highs, which is actually going and getting the work done that you need to. Future work for the Earnest project, there is possible revisiting of Kotzebue to get some more responses, and then just playing with the information that we do have. And then for the Arid project, the QR codes are staying up. So just evaluating and analyzing that new data if we get any more. And any questions?
Curious on like the first graph
Yeah.
from the Earnest, there was a point where there was no yeses, there's like a gap in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you have
Here, let
any
me go back to
thoughts
that.
of,
I absolutely have thoughts.
that was interesting.
Yeah, we'll go right here. So yeah, Annalise is asking about the $3 to maybe $4.50 area where there's just no yes responses. I will say, Michelle and I talked about it. Not everyone filled out the survey correctly. They were supposed to fill out every monetary value with a yes, no, or maybe, and some people were just picking and choosing which ones they would say yes and no to. So that's why, you know, they might not be the most reliable results at this point. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is that what, is that would explain why it looked like people changed their mind when they got to $5.
Right.
I was like, wow, people just decide, oh, $5, I'm fine.
Yeah, we have a spike at $5. So
I'm not paying for the $3, but I'll survive.
yeah, my guess is that there was one person, it looks like we got 2 responses at $5. So either someone could have read it wrong, or someone just really likes their hot showers and they're paying their $5 no matter what. Yeah,
I might be in that category,
but
honestly.
yeah, there might be some people.
I mean, that's a cup of coffee out. I'd rather have a hot shower than a cup of coffee.
And then about $5 per month for, I missed that part, sorry.
I believe this one was a one case scenario. Like this happens, how much are you willing to pay in the moment for that shower? Yeah. Bennett, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering about like, if you have someone, so like a case like that, if someone's willing to pay $5, like, would you go back and backfill and be like, oh, they'd be willing to pay all of the lower amounts too, or is that like? too
I
much
feel
data?
like we should, just because I feel like if you're willing to pay $5, wouldn't you also be willing to pay $4.50? So that's something I definitely am interested in, maybe going back in and backfilling. Yeah, for sure.
It's a great idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that survey still up in Kotzebue? Cause your electric vehicles one is, but is this one?
This one is not up in Kotzebue because there's just no way to make sure it's not the same person answering over and over,
Oh, yeah.
and it's actually a resident. So we just kind of have a short window where we just get as many people as we can. Yeah. Chandler question.
Were there any surprising requirements from IRB?
Both of these were exempt, which was super nice. We did say we gave compensation for completing this, $5 if you complete it. I feel like I was actually surprised that that did not require more from IRB. Both of them were exempt
The
from,
challenge was getting the exemption.
right, yeah, the challenge, I didn't have to do a full protocol with IRB, it was just getting the exemption and going back and forth. And I think the hardest part for me was getting both the consent forms down to an 8th grade reading level. That was really difficult.
Well, and what about having to get Stanford?
Oh, yes, I was gonna
That's
mention
what
that
took
too.
forever.
So Ernest, we actually got the IRB approval quickly for that first project, however. It's also a Stanford funded project through their Ernest program, and that one took, I think, almost a month, like 3 weeks or something. It took a while for them to give us the thumbs up. Yes, Michelle.
Question, so you didn't mention, but I happen to know that you have a family history with Kotzebue and have spent time there in your youth. And you also kind of hinted that it was very different to go back and do work there. Do you want to give us just a little
Absolutely.
sense of that or anecdote?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to, sorry, I'm just totally streaming through these. Yeah, it was very different. I grew up, my grandparents lived in Kotzebue for 50 years and they just moved back last summer. So if they had just waited out one more year, I could have stayed with them. But it was much different being there by myself without a house to go to and food and, grandparents to drive you around, and